Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is Faiza with you with the new lesson of Tajweed. Inshallah, in this lesson we'll learn about the raw rules by which you will recite the raw as thick sound. So let's start our lesson. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Start now. This is the first word. Rabbana. You can see the ra has zabar on top. So whenever you see ra has zabar on top, then pesh on top, then do zabar, those pesh, then ulta pesh, then khada zabar. So all these signs when you see on a ra, you will make thick sound. So this is Rabbana. This is the first rule. Rabbana. Sirata. Sirata. This is ra with zabar and we are making thick sound. Then Sirajan. Sirajan. Ra thick sound. Rawhun. Rawhun. Rayhanun. Ra thick sound. Rayhanun. Rubama. Ra thick sound. Rubama. Aktharu. Aktharu. Marru. Marru. Sabran. Sabran. Ajran. Ajran. You are looking at it that it has do zabar on top of a ra, and this has pesh on ra, and this has zabar on ra. So we are making thick sounds. Sirrun. Sirrun. Mustamirrun. Mustamirrun. Ibrahima. Ibrahima. الراسخون الراسخون. This is, you can see the khadi zabar on top of ra and we are making thick sound. So this is the first rule for making ra thick sound. Now we have to look at the second rule, that is when you see ra has a jazm on top and you have to look at the previous letter, there should be the zabar, pesh or khada zabar or any other sign which I told you before. Then you will make thick sound of ra. So this is barqun. Barqun. Arshun. Arshun. Qur'anu. Qur'anu. See, the ra has thick sound because next previously and the qaf has pesh on top. Qur'anu. Then yurzaquna, the ra thick sound because previously there is pesh on top. Yurzaquna. Yurzaquna. Now we'll talk about the third rule. You can see there is a pausing sign, the ayah sign, the circle one. When you pause, we will place jazm on a ra, and the previous one letter also has jazm. So you will see the most previous letter. If there is a zabar on letter and it has a pesh on top, so you will make thick sound of ra. Wal asr. Wal asr. Then bis sabr. Bis sabr. The ra thick sound. Khosr, khosr, and if we say khosr, then it is the thin sound. Bisawr, this is thin sound, but we have to make thick sound. So wal asr, bisawr, bisawr, khosr, khosr. Then it is the fourth rule. Now you can see over here, this is the fourth rule, and why we are making thick sound of raw letter over here, and we can see there is a zair at the previous letter. So why we are making thick sound of raw over here? Because this is a separate word and this is another separate word. It is in and it is irtabatum. See, so when you are joining two separate words by the raw letter, then you have to make thick sound. In irtabatum. Inirtabatum, right? Next you can see this is and it is irtabu. Irtabu. It is a separate word. And irtabu is another separate word. So we are joining them. That's why we are making thick sound of ra. Amirtabu. amirtabu. This is. Now, next one is, we can see this is alladhi irtadha. You can see this is the separate word alladhi irtadha. This is the second separate word. So we are joining them. That's why it is alladhi irtadha. Alladhi irtadha. Liman, it is a separate word. Irtadha, second separate word. Join them with the thick sound of ra. Liman irtadha. Liman irtadha. Then Rabbir ji'uni. Rabbir ji'uni. See, we are making thick sound of ra because both are separate letters, words. Then Rabbir hamhuma. Rabbir hamhuma. Now, this is the next rule. You can see there is ra with jazm on top, and we are looking then the previous letter has zir under it. But over here, when you see the ra has jazm on top, you have to look at the next word. If the next letter has a thick sound, so we'll make the ra thick sound. We'll not look at the previous one. Okay, so this is firqin. Firqin, the ra thick sound. Firqin. Then firqatin. Firqatin. This is. Then qirtasin. You can see the ta has thick sound. That's why we are making ra thick sound. Qirtasin. Qirtasin. This is. Bil mirsadi. Bil mirsadi. This is. Khayru raziqina. Khayru raziqina. So I hope so that you understand when on which places you need to make ra thick sound. Okay, let's revise the rules of ra to make thick sound so you can understand better how to pronounce the ra letter thick. So the first rule is you have to make thick sound whenever you see ra has a zabar on top, then you see ra has pesh on top, ra has do zabar on top, ra has do pesh on top, then ra has khadi zabars on top. Okay, this is the first rule. Second rule is when you see the ra has jazm on top, look at the previous letter, it should be zabar, zabar, or maybe the pesh, then you can make thick sound. Third rule is that when you need to pause on a ra, you will look at the previous letters. If there is a jazm on the previous one, then look at the most previous one. If it has a zabar or pesh, then make thick sounds when you need to pause. Fourth rule is that when you need to join two separate words by the ra letter and making thick sound. These are the examples of this rule. Now the fifth rule is that when you see there is a ra letter with jazm on top, so you will make thick sound because next letter has a thick sound. I hope so that you understand how to pronounce the thick sound of ra. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.